you're going to hear a lot of no's. You're going to hear no's, you're going to hear come back to me later, and then people won't call you back. But keep at it and, you know, keep making things better so that next time it's harder for them to say no.
My name is Georgie Rogers, and with a team of female filmmakers, I'm hitting the road to track down trailblazers in their field and celebrate their stories. Meet the Superwomen. Amali is the superwoman and CEO behind Code First Girls, a social enterprise working to get more women into tech. And they are absolutely smashing it. Over the last 3 years, they've delivered over £5 million worth of free tech education and taught over 10,000 women to code.
Hey, how are you doing? How are you? Thank you.
Welcome to Superwomen, Amali De Alwis.
It is an absolute pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
You're the CEO of Code First Girls, and it's such an amazing achievement. You've taught more women to code than the British university system.
Yeah, it's slightly bonkers, and you know, to be fair, we don't teach university degrees, so it's not the same kind of depth of knowledge, but per year we teach more women how to code than do a computer science degree. So at the moment we've actually just gone through our 10,000 young women taught to code for free mark, and we're teaching somewhere in the region of 4,500 to 5,000 women how to code for free each year.
Amazing. 20,000 people by 2020.
That's by the end of 2020, 20,000 women taught to code for free. That's our goal.
So what might someone that you've taught to code go on to do?
There are just so many things. It's something that I probably say at least once a day, which is there's no such thing as a non-tech business. And I think coding teaches you obviously the coding skills itself, but there's also something about the discipline of learning how to build something in a structured way. With coding skills themselves, you can obviously become a software developer, you can become a data scientist, you can be looking at, you know, robotics or, you know, building things in other ways. So lots of different things that you can do. And also on the more creative side, I mean, you can become a web developer, a web designer, you can become a 3D illustrator or, you know, an artist. So lots of opportunities. It's just about finding what is it that excites you and what would you build with those skills.
So what is it that you need skills-wise to be good at it?
As far as the coding itself goes, you need to like problem solving. You need to be tenacious. You need to be able to sort of unpick a problem and try and work out methodologically how do you get to the end. And it really is learning a language. And I would say anyone who likes learning languages will probably enjoy coding as well, because it's really around sort of taking all of these words that you have and creating something from that. So creativity, I think, is a really key part as well.
And did you have a kind of technical head on you growing up? Were you good at science and maths? And
I think I just like building things.
Yeah.
So my dad's a doctor, my mum, I guess, was more of an entrepreneur, so she had lots of little businesses, but also she trained as a tailor. So for me, whether it was making waistcoats for my Barbie dolls and sewing those with my mum, or using my electronic sets or Meccano kits to build, I don't know, rockets or alarms for my bedroom so my sister couldn't creep into my bedroom, it was really about making things and just using my imagination to do things that I enjoyed.
did tech come into that work? Can you remember your first computer in the house?
I do remember the first computer that my dad got, probably when I was about maybe 12, 13, and it had 8 megs of RAM, and I just remember looking through its sort of BIOS functions, and it had some old computer game called California Games where you like had to jump on skateboards and stuff. And yeah.
I remember mine. It was the Gateway 2000.
It's an oldie, yeah.
It was a big brick of a thing, and then you'd get on the internet, and like my mum would come in and be like, "Get off!" as it's like dialing up the modem or whatever the technical.
Old school days, yes.
Old school. And actually, you did go on to do some. You worked in the shoe industry for a bit, didn't you?
I did. So my first studies were in engineering, manufacturing engineering, and then I actually went and did a degree in footwear design. So it was my kind of radical, I'm going to go off and be an Ponzi art student kind of move, which horribly backfired probably about 6 months in when I realised I'd really done the same degree twice, because whether you're making shoes or aeroplane propellers, it's actually pretty much the same process. But it, I think, really helped me to kind of think about what was it that I enjoyed about that building, and I think for me it was more about the thinking behind the products.
you've spoken extensively about the need for more women in the tech industry, and that maybe that's partly because there's kind of a lack of women at the kind of computer science level.
Yeah.
Was that quite obvious when you started out?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going back sort of 20 years to when I first went to uni, but even if you go today, go to any undergraduate, courses in computer science, in physics and engineering, almost guaranteed you will have maybe 5-10% women, if not less in some cases. So yeah, we aren't getting those numbers coming through. And certainly when I looked at the numbers of women who are applying to computer science degrees, I think last year there were 27,000 people who did a computer science degree, and of that only 3,700 odd were women, so less than 14%. So we're not getting those numbers coming through.
Why do you think that is? It's a big question. But
it's a big question, and I think it's a little bit of death of a thousand cuts. I think a big part of it is what narrative do we tell our girls around what types of careers are suitable for them. So I think it was Women in Engineering Science, WES, who did a really nice piece of research a few years ago where they were asking parents, what kind of careers do you envisage for your sons and daughters? And when we're talking about boys, we talk about anything from engineering, computer science, footballers, doctors, all of these kind of things. When we're talking about girls, we see a bit more of the doctor side of things, but otherwise it is also nurses and teachers and fairly traditional female occupations. We don't think about girls being computer scientists or rocket scientists or physicists or thinking about sort of STEM subjects as specialists in those kinds of areas. So that then perpetuates, I think, through when people select their subjects, so when they go to school. And there's a lot of peer pressure as well around what do you see your friends doing and what do you see others doing. And this idea about what you can put your skills to. It's not that these young girls don't have mathematical skills or logical skills or good problem solvers or builders. They just take those skills and do other things with them. And I think, when I think about my engineering, my first set of studies, that was one of the reasons I didn't go into engineering, because I couldn't connect with it at that point. I couldn't see myself in it.
If you'd seen people actually doing it in engineering, do you think that would have changed it? Do you think
I think it would have helped.
Yeah.
I think it would have helped for me to see people who I could relate to and who excited me. And I think that's a big thing about it, And, when we think about, Code First Girls and what I do, one of our biggest jobs is to just get people really excited about technology and to show them these people doing things, to take a little bit of that mysticism around what do people in, software engineering do or something else like that.
Are there male and female differences when it comes to tech? I know quite often there's this gender stereotyping that goes on. Guys are good at this, women are good at this. How do you see it?
In my experience, there is no difference. I think there is a difference between people who have been doing this since they were kids versus people who switch. And we meet a lot of male switchers as well. And they're, exactly the same as the women. But we have, young women who come to us having done philosophy degrees, young women who are being processed as refugees, young women who come from the fashion industry, and they learn to code and they love it and they do as well as any of the male instructors and stuff that we work with as well.
Have you experienced any misogyny in it?
I think there are always people you will meet, and I think about a young man who I met recently who was actually very respectful, but really believed that the science has been disproved on this, that men and women have different brains, which made women less suitable to work in technology. Now, I obviously have issues with that, seeing thousands, quite literally thousands of women who work in technology, but there are still people who believe that. There are still people who believe that women are suited to certain things. And I do think that one of the biggest things around feminism, one of the biggest challenges around equality, isn't working with the party who is sort of who's struggling there. It's not about actually working necessarily just with the women. We need to work with men. We need to kind of help people to understand what these challenges are and kind of see, I think, sometimes the flaws in some of these arguments to actually move things forward.
Were there any sort of personal pitfalls over the career that made things very challenging for you to get through?
Pitfalls, it's hard to say. I think there are always things that you wish you'd done differently, but I would say I don't regret any of them because they all make me who I am today. And I think that one of the things that I certainly try and help some of the young women sort of understand is that when we look at people's careers, it's very easy to look back at someone's career and look back and sort of, hindsight is 2020, and you see all of this perfect kind of strategize. They went from this job to this job and now they're doing this. And life's just not like that. There are accidents and things that happen, and changes of direction, and bad decisions and good decisions and lucky things. So it's almost, I think, just continuing to be true to yourself as you go through things, and keep asking yourself, how do I want to spend my day? How in this world where, we are fortunate enough to be able to, live in a place where we have the freedom to choose, but where you have that freedom to choose, to use that right, and to keep reminding yourself that if there is something that you're not happy with, you actually have the power to move that and change that as well. So, keep moving forward, keep pushing forward, and don't settle.
And actually, sometimes the failures, they turn into success,
Absolutely. And you learn as much from the failures as you do from the successes as well. And there are certainly things which I've sort of done where I look back and go, you know what, that wasn't the best way to do it, but I'll remember not to do it that way again.
Yeah. Are there any other ways that you feel that you've pioneered the way for women in tech?
I think, and I would almost pull myself apart from Code First Girls as far as what I was brought in to do was to build Code First Girls, and I am incredibly proud of that. And if I have managed to directly support and inspire anyone else to kind of go and follow their dream and get excited about tech, I am delighted with that. What I am more proud about is what I think Code First Girls has been able to achieve, because that is so much bigger than me. When I think about the number of people who help us to do what we do, and the number of ways that they inspire people who I have never even met, that for me is a really, I feel very proud of that.
Amali's work encouraging girls to code was recognised by the Queen in 2018, and she was awarded an MBE for services to diversity in technology. And how do we encourage more women to get into tech and leadership roles and get to those positions that are higher up in the pecking order?
The best advice I would say is don't be scared and just have a go. And it really is one of those things where when we do our introductory coding courses, the moment that always really excites me is the first time that someone creates, basically saves something as a HTML doc and opens it up in a browser, and they suddenly go, oh, that's how a website works, and I've just done that in 15 minutes. And it's that real light bulb moment where people realize that it's not voodoo. It's not sort of, this transparent black box where you can't figure out how things are working. And it's not that everyone needs to be a software developer, but it is about, I think, everyone just seeing that it's not magic, and that this is something which, if you were to want to, you could do this, and you can see how some of those early steps would look, and that people can grow from that. Yeah. So that for me is always really empowering. Yeah.
What would you say to anyone, man or woman, any non-gender specific here, that is looking to take on something seemingly impossible?
It's never impossible. It's rarely impossible. And I always I like to think of the analogy of, trying to find your way, your life, your career it's more like a steeplechase than a flat sprint, right? Hurdles are part of the job. And with everything, you can generally either jump over it or you can find a way around. And that point around, don't get disheartened when things don't work or you don't manage to get things working. Find people who will support you, find people who are going along the journey with you, and just keep at it. I think persistence is often key.
Have you had some no's?
I've had plenty of no's. So rejection is just part of that process. And I think for a lot of people who are trying to do something which is really hard, recognizing that you're going to hear a lot of no's. You're going to hear no's, you're going to hear come back to me later, and then people won't call you back. But keep at it and keep making things better so that next time it's harder for them to say no.
And what are your dreams beyond the 20,000 mark, which I think you got it. I think it's going to happen.
I am also confident that 20,000, we're going to do that. We're going to do that. I don't know, maybe world domination or something like that. Yeah. We actually we've just had our first course in Mexico. A really random one, and I think there's another one which is being discussed in Iran as well. So yeah, maybe sort of global expansion, maybe thinking about how we can support companies more, maybe thinking about how we can run more of those types of courses. So yeah, who knows? Sky's the limit.
Since filming, Amali has left Code First Girls and taken up a position at Microsoft as head of startups, where she continues to encourage diversity in the tech industry. And Code First Girls are still on track to smash their goal of teaching 20,000 women to code by the end of 2020.